China. Of all East Asian cultures, China has the most popular traditional culture and history among people here in the West. Ever since being a kid, I had an interest in the Chinese character system and have always kind of wanted to learn the language.
I wish that you would recognize that their culture is not your obsession with colonialism.
You got like the pillaging of the continent of Hawaii.
I wish you'd get out of my life and shut up.
It's funny because my first attempt at a related language was not in fact Mandarin, but Japanese instead. Then years after giving up Japanese, I ended up learning Korean. When talking to a friend in Korea before I left, I was asked about a New Year's resolution, and I stated that mine was to learn a third language. The options I had given myself were Dutch, Chinese, and Japanese. As you can tell, I ultimately decided on Chinese, because a pre-existing knowledge of the character system will help me with Japanese later, and Dutch seems like something I can start a lot easier than the other two. So what is this series? Well, I'll start by studying a language, then every month I upload a video where I talk about what I've learned so far. I want this to be interactive, so please, take my invitation to learn with me, give suggestions as you please, and help me on my journey so we can learn together. I recorded that line before I bought this little beauty right here, so I'm going to be doing the voiceover with this thing from now on. Bye for now. Oh, carefully, okay. So the first thing that I always like to do when deciding on learning anything in general is gather study resources. That included books to study out of and books to write in about the language. When I was making the So You Want to Learn Korean A video, I went and I picked up some vocabulary books, and I actually picked up a surplus because I like to have a personal, I call it my personal moongoo, or personal stationery shop, where I keep notebooks and little stationery and stickers and extra pens and stuff like that, and it's just a little box I keep in my room, and I usually pull out of there to do vocabulary books. I got a couple of large notebooks, and I got a couple of vocabulary books, and I used one of them as an example for the Korean video, and I actually used one of them for my own Chinese studies, which I've kind of used, but I feel like I'll probably be using them more later on when I'm more focused on learning the actual language as opposed to just figuring out pinyin right now, which is really what's going on. The next thing that I realized is that I needed to set goals, and I actually stated this in my first weekly report. So goals. Make one of these for Pinyin. I'm going to call it Pinyin Blitz. By the end of what I realized was, why would I sit down and painstakingly make really janky flashcards that don't make any sense when you have a smartphone? So I checked out a few different apps. I checked out Lingo Deer, I checked out Duolingo, I checked out Drops. I just looked at all the language learning apps, and I decided that Lingo Deer and Drops were the two best options. Drops is really good for vocabulary and stuff like that, and Lingo Deer is awesome for learning the language itself. If you're wondering why I'm not talking specifically about Duolingo, it's because I actually don't really like Duolingo for learning Korean and Asian languages in general, because when I've tried in the past, it does it in a really bad way, and you might want to look out for a future video where I literally talk about how Duolingo taught false Korean on its platform. So one of the next things that I realized was that I actually need a motivation to learn the language in order to get myself to actually learn it, because in order to make a positive change in your life, or in order to do something, you actually have to feel motivated or inspired to do it. I realized something that's really, really important when you're first learning a language, and it's that you need a motivation. Like when I learned Korean, my motivation was that I'm in the country, and if I don't learn the language, I'm stuck. I'm out of the loop. I can't replicate that here with Chinese. I'm not in China. We're in America. And better yet, I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. So it's even harder to like immerse myself in Chinese as far as the language goes, because it's not possible. So I had to come up with a new motivation. So I got a new job. I'm working at a bookstore right next to where I live. And right next to where I live is a big tourist spot. It's called Temple Square. And there are Chinese tourists literally by the busload. And since it's a tourist spot, when they stop the bus, they stop here in downtown Salt Lake, right here where I live. And so, at work, there are busloads of Chinese people that come in because it's a bookstore. It's the closest thing to a gift shop nearby. Never encountered a Korean. We're talking about that. I'm like, we sure have encountered a lot of Chinese. They're like, oh, they come by the busload. If there's any language you want to learn next, it's Chinese. And I kind of laughed, and I was like, actually, that's a language I'm trying to start learning, like, now. And it was, in that moment, it just, like, snapped. It was just kind of revelatory. I realized that in order to, like, start learning a language, like, to really have that fire to study, you have to have that motivation. You have to have that, like, thing that you can set goals about. Or there's no point. You're, like, I joke that, like, you're literally just torturing yourself by learning a language for fun. And obviously I could learn a language for fun, but I have so little time that I don't feel motivated at the end of the day to study for even 20 minutes.
I just decided to go for that. And what I did was I just felt motivated enough to say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And instead of watching a YouTube video on the train on the way to school or while waiting for a class to start, I would just open up Drops or Lingo Deer, and all I would do is I just had a goal where I would do the free drops, like 5 minutes a day, that they only allow you to do like 5 minutes every 12 hours or something like that. I would only do that once a day and learn a little bit of vocabulary, and then I would do a Lingo Deer lesson. I got really bad about doing my weekly reports, and so I think things that I would like to do better next month is have a weekly report each week, and I would actually like to start writing words in my vocabulary book. I think I have 1 or 2 phrases or a word in my vocabulary book, and I've learned like 2 vocabulary words.
Don't hurt me. I think this is like, this whole channel, like the Geometro Archive channel, I'm gonna make an intro to it, but like legitimately, this is going to be the channel that if you want to find dirt on me, if you want to call me racist or something, just pick some slip up that I do on here, because I don't really edit these videos, and so, you know, who's the people that like to expose others for being like racist or whatever? Anita Sarkeesian. No, she doesn't do that. She's actually like somewhat of a decent person. Oh my gosh, no, the anti-SJWs are gonna crucify me for saying that.